don't be afraid to hire top tier talent. They will help you scale. They will help you retain clients. It's a lot more expensive to onboard and offboard clients than it is to retain them. Your margins, if you're focused on your margins and you cheapen out on hiring cheap talent, junior talent, your margins will be worse because you'll spend all your time onboarding and offboarding. Instead, don't be afraid of breaking even on month one because you have a lot of external talent to pay for or resources, and then keep your client for anything that's past like 6 months in LTV. It's usually all gravy. It's all profits.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the High Ticket Podcast. Today, we are joined by the probably only French guy that's ever qualified to teach you how to make money. We are joined here by Alex, and Alex is going to be teaching you some really cool things of how they've been able to scale, or has been able to help scale a couple companies, grow his own company, scale another company, and exit it for 9 figures. A lot of exciting stuff here today, and this is going to be really relevant for you, especially if you're in SaaS, marketing, high ticket, etc. So, yeah, with that said, Alex, go ahead, take a moment, introduce yourself, and tell us why you're qualified to teach us how to make a lot of money.
Cool. Well, thanks for having me. We're just joking about how the French never really won a war. But in French high school, they taught us we won everything. So when I moved to America, everybody asked me what my white flag was. And I never really got it until I learned the real history, which was taught by the Americans. But yeah, it's good to be here. Born and raised in France. I've been in America for 11 years. I came here after high school, actually. This was supposed to be a little bit of an English school learning trip for a gap year, basically, before I go to college in France. And there was too much to love about this country, including the truth behind World War II. I
cut that out.
So I just ended up staying here. I went to college. I went to USC, and it's been a great adventure. And I've been deep into the digital marketing space for the last 2017, so the last 8 years now. I remember when I used to start in business, people were like, I've been in business for 8 years, and they sounded so old, and now it's me. So I can't wait to say I've been doing it for 40 years. It's going to hit different.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, man. Yeah. No, that's one thing, too. I mean, looking back now, I'm like, I've been in the industry for at least 8 to the overall, like, running businesses and like starting my entrepreneurial journey has been about 10 years at this point. But yeah, man, it's like I look back and I'm like, dude, I've been in business for a decade. Like I feel like I'm just like still getting started. I'm still that young, like hungry entrepreneur dude who's trying to figure it out. Like it's crazy, man. So
speaking of young hungry entrepreneur, I don't think you got your start in entrepreneurship, funny enough, right? You were more of an intrapreneur that shifted to being an entrepreneur.
Yeah. I did a few things. So in high school, actually, is when I started my businesses. I had an event planning business back in France when I was 16. So I failed my entire junior year in high school. I know it's hard to do, but in France, you actually get held back a whole year, right? Sure. So instead of moving forward to my last year of high school, senior year, I got held back junior year. And so I started an events planning business. When my buddies all went to college, I was stuck in high school for another year. So I basically leveraged their audience, the college audience, the business schools in my hometown of Lille, France, to throw events while I was in high school. Wow. And so basically all I was doing in class was like messing around with inventory and P&Ls on a pen and paper during the math classes.
So I was geeking out on P&Ls in high school.
I was geeking out on P&Ls in high school. And I just didn't realize, but I was basically like already doing little entrepreneurial stuff without, calling it being an entrepreneur, like the fancy, like Gary V, legions of people are calling it. It was just more like, I like to go out, and I've got now this big audience. My friends are in college; they're discovering drinking and all that stuff. Let me put together events in my hometown and make a little bit of money and have fun along the way. So that was the first business, and I think that's where I realized I got really excited about marketing, because at the time, I don't think there was Facebook ads. This was 2010, so maybe there were Facebook ads, but nobody really knew how to use it. But back then we had organic reach, so I used to put together those teaser videos, which in hindsight very much translates into what we do these days with Facebook ads. It's all about the creative. It's always been about the creative, and I think it always will be.
Funny enough, in 2010, that was like the golden age of even SEO, like where you put all your keywords and highlight it. Like you just rank like up top on Google, but I mean, you went from the wild west of initially starting off in internet marketing, and you saw like the complete beginning. What are some big changes that you've observed over time? I know you said creative is king, but what are some time-tell principles that have stuck along?
So it's really standing out, right, in your creative. So what we did is, at the time where everything was organic, we actually used to go and rent costumes. So I would go to a costume shop, I'll show you the photo after, or you can insert it here if you're watching on YouTube.
Zach, we get that photo.
We actually got a gorilla and a chicken costume, me and my business partner, and so we're basically like dressed up as a gorilla and a chicken. And I knew exactly where the students that I was targeting were hanging out on Saturday afternoons in like the main downtown area of my hometown. So basically, I didn't realize that at the time, but I was already building a funnel just in real life. So if you think about Facebook
a gorilla
ads,
and chicken funnel.
Well, so let me explain. If you think about Facebook ads in real today, you've got to do a creative that catches your attention to stop them in their tracks, right? High click-through rate and thumb stop rate. But you've got to target the right people, because you can have the best ad in the world. If you're targeting the wrong people, or if you're sending them to the wrong destination, your funnel is not going to convert, right? It's basically the 4 steps. It's creative, targeting, copywriting is also very important, and then destination. So what I do with my gorilla costume, I was actually catching their attention. That was my creative. That was my hook. You'd see me in a gorilla costume and my boy in a chicken costume. It's hard to ignore, right? My targeting was showing up to places where these guys were hanging out. I knew they were having beers on Saturday afternoons, coffees, smoking cigarettes, chilling, a very French thing to do, right? And then my call to action was a flyer. You'll see on the photo, I'm carrying all these flyers with a hot chick on it. The parties were called Too Hot for School, because everybody in France was obsessed with America, because everybody was watching American Pie and thought this wasn't even the real world. And I discovered it is when I went to USC. And so basically we had the whole formula, just like if I'm starting a funnel tomorrow to advertise these podcasts or to advertise any business, I'm going to be using the same thought process as I did when I dressed up as a gorilla, just by thinking through the whole thing from the moment they discover me to the moment they're converting. And the converting piece for me was buying a pre-sale. We're selling €7 pre-sales. It would give you a drink and access to the party. So that's basically how I started my journey into marketing and advertising and entrepreneurship, long before I even touched a Facebook ad.
Yeah, and how'd you end up at Music then?
So that story was in high school. I was in France. So when I turned 18, again, I was pretty much a fuck up in high school. So I decided to go learn English for a year after I graduated. I said, let me go do something useful with my life. Go learn a different language. Sounds like this business thing is pretty good.
You were the best one, by the way.
Yeah, thanks. I figured this business thing is, pretty interesting, and I should probably learn English to take this thing to the next level. So I booked a one-way flight to Santa Monica, California. I enrolled into an English program school that lasted 3 months, and then included a semester at a local community college. So I did 3 months of learning English basically from scratch. That was 11 years ago. And once I got good enough, I joined Santa Monica College, and I did a semester there where I realized, you can pick your classes here. You can actually do marketing and business classes. In high school, I was an engineering major. They make you do a pre-major in high school, and I fucking hated it. I sucked at math and science. So
you have a marketing major back then?
They did, but I was basically coerced by my family to do engineering. Yeah. So that's what I ended up doing, and then I ended up coming back to France that summer, took a loan at my local bank to basically come back to America and do the whole thing, the whole studies. Did 2 years at a community college, transferred to USC, had the best years of my life. And halfway through USC is when I really got across Facebook ads. So I started to play around with it, YouTube. In school, I was frustrated because they were teaching us about the 4 Ps and all the marketing jargon that no one's ever used in real life. Yeah, right. And so I ended up learning about Facebook ads on YouTube. Took a few courses on Udemy.
And when was this? Like 2016?
That's 2016 to 2018 is when I was at USC.
The golden era.
The golden era. And I realized you telling me you can put $1 in and get 3 back. That seems interesting. So I took on my first freelance clients before I even worked at Mute6. That got me into a place where I knew a decent amount about Facebook ads, but clearly not enough to start my own agency. And I had the self-awareness of that. Thankfully, I didn't go into starting my own. Instead, I figured I should join a small agency that was up and coming, so I'd get a lot of responsibilities and learn quick. One of my mentors introduced me to one of the partners at Mute6, and that's when Mute6 had 20 employees in 2018. I interviewed for these guys, dream job. Basically, here we're going to give you clients' credit cards. We're going to give you all the tools to learn how to do creative and targeting and all that fun stuff. And you're going to go crush, make these guys money, and fill your pockets at the same time, because we had a percentage of ad spend model.
So real quick, just so everyone knows who's watching, what is Mute6?
So Mute6 is a marketing agency that specializes in Facebook ads. We're basically right there at the right time in the golden era of Facebook. And we're considered by many one of the top agencies in the US.
So, and at Mute 6, what was the type of clientele you had? Did it range from like small, like brick and mortar businesses all the way up to like enterprise level clients, or like did you guys have a specific niche you worked with?
Bread and butter were Shopify e-commerce brands.
Okay.
Anyone who was doing between 10 and 100 million was probably our bread and butter. But early on, we took on a lot of go-to-market clients. We took coaching businesses. We took a little bit of everything until we niched down into this e-commerce niche. But the genius behind this business, and that's what I'd recommend anyone who's building a team of 10 and above people, is to basically build a level system. So when I joined Mute 6, they told me, look, you're an entry-level guy. We'll pay you $45K a year. You're a level 1. The CEO made time to basically walk me through the level system on a whiteboard my first week. He said, level 1, you're making $45K. You see that guy next to you is a level 2, he's making $75K. And it was level 1 through 5. And level 5, you're making $300K, and you had a team of X amount of people. And he said, if you don't believe me, go talk to this guy. He's a level 5. He'll tell you how much he makes. Super transparent. And every level didn't have a time component to it. If you're a startup, you can afford to do that. You can afford to promote your employees as long as they're growing the revenue along with you. If you're an enterprise client, it's a little bit harder. There's time elements that come to it. As a matter of fact, when we sold, they made that level system a little bit more rigid. But essentially, the beauty of hiring top talent within Mute 6, if you're hiring talent right now, you should give your employees an incentive to grow the business with you. So basically, turn them into intrapreneurs, to circle back into your question.
Was that primarily done through comp structure, or what do you feel like was the biggest thing that kept those A players and like kept them driving at that velocity?
Commission. I mean, you graduate from college, you got $200K of debt, and you've got an employer who tells you, look, I'm going to give you the keys to do what you enjoy doing already. And if you do it really well, you'll make money and then you'll grow in the business. If you've got any ounce of entrepreneurship in you, this is a dream job.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's exactly what I did. And I ended up being the fastest growing employee in the history of the company. I went from level 1 to 5 in less than 2 years, 18 months specifically. So when I joined, I was one of the first 20 employees. By the time we sold, 4 years later, it was 500 of us. So we scaled the business from 20 to 500 employees.
And how many direct reports did you say you had underneath you?
I had a team of 15. So biggest team on the paid social side. I had 15 people running ads all day, every day. And I was helping lead the department who had 125 people.
So a quick thing on that, like as a marketing director, what did your scopes look like? Were you just directing creative, or like were you enforcing split tests? Like what did that
Yeah.
look like?
So part of growing through that level system we had was to basically checkbox everything. Can you write a landing page? Can you write copy? Can you A/B test? Can you communicate with clients? Can you manage a fire? So the way they built that level system is they literally wrote on a whiteboard everything that made a good digital marketer. And then we built that into systems and categories. One was communication, media buying, because media buying back then was a big thing, right? Can you test different lookalikes? Can you A/B test male versus female? The stuff we don't really do anymore, right? So that stuff doesn't matter as much. Yeah. But the key was creative. Like a big part of it was creative. And we had mastered UGC long before anyone talked about UGC. We'd have clients send us products. They thought it was crazy that their marketers would shoot UGC content at the office late after everybody was gone. But we did that and it crushed, right? So that's basically how we managed to grow the business, by giving the employees an incentive.
And did Mute 6 offer any creative back then, or was it just media buying?
We did, but it was free. It was like, hey, send me your product. I'll shoot a video on my iPhone. I guarantee you it'll convert better than the $30,000 shoot you just did with those people. And surely you did.
It did, yeah. Back then it would have.
You did. And that's when I started my my page just for fun. So I had a client who, he didn't believe me that you could whitelist with like 100 followers or something, whatever I had on Instagram. So if you're a coach or if you're any sort of a business owner and you don't necessarily, if you're a coach, you probably have an Instagram presence, but assuming you don't, or assuming you have too small of a follower and you're wondering if your ads are going to convert by running through your name, people don't really pay attention as much to your page as they pay attention to the landing page you take them on. So basically I proved my client that I could shoot an ad myself. I built a page called the French Review Guy when I had like a thicker French accent 6 years ago. And I would basically have them ship me product. I'd make a quick UGC review, raw, unedited, no subtitles, throw in the ads manager, run it through my handle on Instagram, and drive to their page. And that ad, I A/B tested it scientifically. That's pre-iOS 14. Things were really accurate. And I proved to the client by A plus B that running from my page, a UGC ad, performed by like 60% better ROAS
Wow.
than running through his brand page and like a more like polished ad.
Yeah.
And the same is so true today. Be authentic.
Yes.
So a big thing that's actually really interesting is through that model, and I'd actually like to go over the details a bit on the exit. I think that can be really helpful because there's obviously a lot of marketing agency owners who also watch this as well too. And like looking at like what a formal exit looks like, not just like, kind of like a buyout kind of thing, like what does an actual exit look like? But one thing that's really fascinating is it looks like the model that you guys built was actually built around how to consistently produce high quality marketers, not just media buyers, not copywriters, but like actual marketers itself. And I think that probably played a lot into your enterprise value if I was to guess on. Yeah.
If you're a service provider, it all comes down to your talent. How can you hire A+ talent and retain them? And actually hiring A+ talent doesn't mean necessarily somebody who's really good at their job. It means somebody who's willing to learn. So guys like me, for example, who are very entry level, but we're just given the keys to succeed and the right training. So essentially we got to a point, we got acquired in 2019. We had a 2-year earnout. So basically we got acquired 2 months before COVID started, which was a crazy time and also helped us crush the earnout because everybody and their mothers was trying to advertise during COVID. So we grew really the business during the 2 years after the acquisition by a stupid amount. But the key is to find talent that's willing to learn, not necessarily talent that's already got all the trainings in the world because they're more expensive. So what we would do is we'd go to colleges. So I'd go to USC. I'd hit up guys in my old frat, and I would say, do you guys have A players? I'm looking for weapons that are excited, that want to do a career in digital marketing. I will teach them everything. And so we built a training system off of that level system, 1 through 5, that would teach every morning at 9 a.m. for new hires. So you'd go hired in January. For 2 months, every day, Monday through Friday at 9 a.m., one of us would host a learning session. So we had about 12 directors at the agency. I was one of them. We would each basically run a lesson every morning at 9 a.m. So we were doing training big time. We'd bring people that were still in college. They were just about to graduate. I knew this guy was going to be an A player. You're hired. You're starting now. Forget about your finals, right? And it would basically teach them how to do everything we've learned how to do. And then these guys would just crush through the level. So to answer your question, the company who bought us out, Dentsu, I think saw the potential. They saw the team was really strong. That was one of the main things why they acquired us. The second one was EBITDA. Obviously, margins were really high. We had an amazing CEO, Dan, who was always really on top of P&Ls and making sure that everybody got compensated without crushing the P&L for the business, essentially. So EBITDA being high obviously helped out growth. We had a nice growth trajectory. So if you're growing your business and you think about selling, you basically want to find the sweet spot between selling too early and too late. If you sell too early, you're missing out on making millions of dollars in distributions every year. But if you sell too late and your growth curve starts to bell down a little bit, well, all of a sudden it's less exciting for a buyer. Your multiplier might go down. So that's another piece of advice I'd give coaches and business owners.
Yeah. And so how do you guys keep your margins? You said that you had high margins. How do you keep high margins at an agency at that scale?
Yeah, you need to charge high. You need to figure out how can you be premium. So I always said if I were to go into real estate, I would want to do luxury real estate. You want to try and figure out what's the high ticket. The other school of thoughts that's quite opposite that I see some coaches do is you do a low ticket at a high volume, right? There's really like two philosophies. In our example, our average retainer was about $15K a month.
Yeah.
So we knew we offered a really premium service that delivered results. And so that's how we're able to keep our margins up because we're basically charging a lot of money. We're compensating our employees in a linear fashion. So the initial model we built had really nice built-in margins. So it didn't matter that the employee compensations went up because the retainers also went up. Essentially, the big part of the compensations was a percentage of revenue. So essentially, if I charge my client $10K a month, you'd make a 5% commission. But if you help scale the account, and now they're paying us $20K a month because they're making twice as much money, you're now making 5% of $20K instead of 10, right? So that's how we kept our margins up. The employee compensation grew along with the revenue that they helped us increase.
Gotcha.
Very, very smart. And I mean, at the end of the day, there's so many different agency owners and they're stuck working for those 2 to 4K a month retainers, right? This SMB nightmare. What is your approach of getting those 10K a month like enterprise deals and what's your approach? What's your systematic approach to signing those type of clients?
Yeah. For the agency players, it's kind of a chicken and egg. issue, mostly because the bigger clients we ever got came after we built a lot of case studies around small clients that we turn into enterprise or we turn into much bigger businesses. So word of mouth was huge. 80% of our business came from word of mouth. But if you're looking at the lifetime of the business, I think of it almost like when they say on Earth, the last 2,000 years is the equivalent of 0.001% of the time Earth has been around. Mute6, a lot of people looked at it as like an overnight success that went from 20 to 500 employees in 5 years and sold for 9 figures. But Mute6 had been around for 6 years before that with less than 20 employees. So the founders, Steve and Dan, they grinded for 6 years until they got success, right? So obviously you've got to have patience. Like I think a lot of people want instant gratification. You have to really build a case for why you're really good. And of course you have to be good at it too. Now, when it comes to enterprise clients, you'd be surprised how accessible a lot of these guys are, because a lot of the time they don't really know what they're doing, especially for advertising. Those big enterprise clients just look at it as like another line item on the budget, right? We have $500K a month to spend on Facebook ads. They don't care if it's brand awareness or if it's conversion focused. A lot of these brands I talk to, they don't even know what their cost per acquisition is. They don't know.
Ridiculous.
They have no idea. So when you come to the table, when you meet these people in person, just like we talked about before the podcast, and you offer value, they get excited. They go back to the office on Monday and they start telling their VP of marketing, and now you've got a call. So you find these guys at conferences. You have to go out to conferences. And I'm not talking about the conference where it's a bunch of scrappy marketers like us. I'm talking about the Shop Talks of the world. I think Shop Talks is next week in Vegas. I go every year. You have to go put the word out. You have to be getting invited to those dinners. You have to be in the room. You have to make the conversations, and you just have to provide value on the spot very quickly. How quickly can I give you value when I meet you? Let me ask you a few questions about what you do, your business. How can I provide value in the next 10 minutes? How can you be memorable? You don't want to be just another guy they met, they forgot their name, God forbid, throw your business card in the trash. You want to be memorable, bring value.
Yeah.
Now, it must have been a crazy transition going from, Mute6 to then starting your own business, because again, being an entrepreneur is so different than starting your own thing. So how did you navigate that transition?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I'll tell you the story. It's definitely a very different experience. Being an entrepreneur is a lot easier than going out on your own. That was a bit of a wake-up call. So when we sold the business, after the earnout was over in January of 2022, I basically figured, all right, I can do a few things. I can start another agency on my own. I can start a brand because I've helped scale hundreds of them. I've spent over $100 million on Facebook ads. There's a few things I can do, but let me maybe get some time to think about it. So let me go ahead and freelance for a little bit. So I started to freelance because a lot of brands started to hear I was on the market and I had built a good reputation at Mute6 from basically working with hundreds of brands and spending $100 million. And so I started to freelance. Very quickly, I got more referrals than I could handle. I probably got a dozen referrals within the 3 months after I left Mute6. Wow. And so I just couldn't handle all the business. And so I figured, okay, well, how can I do right by these clients without taking on their business? Well, let me introduce them to my former juniors, my former directors that I worked with me that I know are amazing at what they do, and they're gone. They're not at Mute6 anymore. So I started to pass out these referrals so the client would be super happy because they worked with A+ marketers, and those marketers were happy I sent them the leads. But after a dozen of those, I said, wait a minute. I should be making a little bit of money on those transactions. So I started to charge my
I'm being
boys.
too nice here.
Yeah, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours.
Yeah.
And so I said, let me charge these guys a small fee, 10% of the transaction for that referral business. And they were more than happy to pay it. Because this guy would go and close like a $10K a month freelance deal, big retainer, and they would pay me $1,000 a month. So that was the pilot behind my startup, Betterly. I decided, I think I'm onto something here. I've got all these leads coming in because of my network, and I literally know the best digital marketers ever because I worked with them, I trained them, and I know they all have that Mute6 stamp of approval. So I built a platform called Betterly, a classic marketplace, basically at the intersection between Fiverr and a fancy agency like Mute6. So you'd have the flexibility of multiple freelancers, but you'd get agency quality without the cost. It wasn't, Betterly is not a marketplace where you can just go and pick your marketers. We handpicked them for them. So I quickly grew the business. Year 1, we did $1 million. Year 2, we did $2.5 million. And then year 3 and above, we're year 3 technically. The business is 3 years old this month actually.
Oh, congrats.
And so that's how I built the business. I basically used the existing demand I had from clients, and I plugged the supply of people that I knew from Mute6 and other agencies really. And so that's how I started Betterly. So going from being an entrepreneur with a whole team and systems that were already built out and built on top of those, and starting from scratch is very different.
Oh yeah.
So I thought, great, I'm going to start this business and I'm going to grow it from 20 to 500 employees in 3 years and sell it for 100 million. I'll get rich and retire on an island. It's not the reality. When you're a CEO, HR is probably the biggest. I don't want to say a headache because it's equally beautiful to have employees and empower them to grow, but it can be a headache in a lot of sense. You're basically now you're a father. Your employees are your kids, especially when they're younger.
Because every single employee that you take on, now all their responsibility becomes yours.
Correct.
So if their kid got suspended at school, they had a bad
Correct.
day. Now you got a bad day. Your kid
Correct.
got suspended.
Yep.
You're getting back. So
Correct.
We all know those.
Yeah. So that's a part of the business that I dealt with Mute6 to an extent, but I really got to celebrate the highs because the business was skyrocketing and I basically got to promote all these guys. Obviously, Betterly is not as successful as Mute6 was. I don't know very many businesses that are as successful as Mute6 ever got, but it's a lot harder when you have to deal with letting go some people, right? Like the lower performers. I didn't have to deal with that nearly as much at Mute6. I feel like I really got to celebrate the highs more than the lows. Again, our co-founders were amazing and they took a lot of that heat for us. And I realized that afterwards, and I'm very thankful for that. But essentially, HR is very difficult. Sales is the lifeblood of the business, but it's not necessarily what I'm best at. So I'm basically a glorified sales guy at this point. So what I do is, I the way I go about selling is I consult. I give all the clients that come to my pipeline marketing advice. But then eventually you get to the part where you have to sell them on why working with your freelancer and not an agency, because we're not that much cheaper. And that's just the part that's not as fun to me as marketing and realistically that I'm not as good at. I'm definitely a better marketer than I'm a sales guy. So you just start to realize all these things that make up the business. It's a lot of fun. I'm having a lot of fun growing the business, but it can also be a headache. And the reality of running a business when you're the founder is very different than running it when you're in the trenches and somebody else already built out a lot of the systems.
Yeah. Have you thought about bringing on do you have a sales partner? Because the reason why I think about this is because that's actually very similar to our dynamic. I feel like I definitely lean more on the sales side than the technical marketing side, and Bhargav's definitely more on the technical marketing than the sales side. So it's like that kind of beautiful combination when we take we take calls together and stuff like that too.
Yeah. Well, there's a third part I didn't talk about. I do have an amazing right hand who basically manages all of the operations. And so the operations is actually like a place where I'm terrible at. Operations, administrative accounting, he handles all of that payroll. I'm just grateful I have it because otherwise I couldn't do what I do. So we actually do a pretty good dynamic. I really do the CEO role, and he's more like I call that like a COO.
Yeah.
Right, like more the integrator role.
Yeah. Pretty much, and it works out that way. Yeah.
No, that makes sense. And I think you started seeing scale limitations and scale restrictions with Betterly, which is more of a sales-driven business. And honestly, we both can agree you're a marketer at heart. So that brings me to like the longer-term vision and the future plan, because I know, if I'm not mistaken, I don't think there's any intention of growing Betterly.
Correct. So I'm at a point where I realize something interesting. There's two things are happening. The business does a lot of revenue, but has low margins, right? Because revenue comes in, we pay out the marketers, we keep 25% in the middle. So your net margin after paying for OPEX and rent and all that fun stuff is actually fairly slim. Our EBITDA is pretty small. We're positive EBITDA, we're making money, but it's nowhere near the agency business or the coaching business.
Yeah.
Now, fast forward to about a year ago, I realized, so this is very much a supply and demand business. You've got a marketplace, you have people looking for talent, and then you have the talent. For every 100 clients we get in the pipeline, we get about 1,000 marketers applying. So we have a 10-to-1 imbalance ratio of supply to demand. And so we actually stopped taking applications because we literally have over 1,000 people in the wait list. We got about 1,000 marketers vetted and another 1,000 waiting there. And it's just become inefficient and unfair for us to take on applicants that we can't give work to, right? Actually, people get upset. They go through this whole verification process. We have them do marketing case studies, interviews, only to just sit there and get no leads. So that basically kept me up at night. I said, well, how can I do right by those people, you know? So I was going to build out a blog on the Betterly website and basically put out content around everything we've learned about being a really good freelance marketer. It was going to be free content just to thank the people that are applying and just didn't get leads yet. But then I went down the rabbit hole and I said, maybe I'm onto something else here. Maybe I'm onto a different part of the business that can generate so much more revenue and actually fix my margin issues, digital products. So I got so bullish on it, I bought the domain, themodernfreelancer.com, and I built a whole blog around it. So instead of building on Betterly, I decided it made more sense to do a different branding that was more, that could relate more with the freelancers as opposed to the brands. If you're looking at the Betterly side, it's very brand friendly, right? There's case studies around what we did for brands. I wanted to build an AP that could resonate with your average digital marketer that works at an agency. People that look like them on the homepage. It's like a guy with a hat backward. He's working at a coffee shop. The whole identity of the modern freelancer speaks to the supply more than it speaks to the demand. And so I started to build that out, and it's really picked up. So we're basically growing a newsletter that goes out every Friday. We've got tons of very actionable blog articles on the website that teach you how to find your clients, how to manage them, the questions to ask, how to take time off as a freelancer if you're on your own, how to delegate, how to pay your taxes. Do you need an S Corp, an LLC, or sole proprietorship? We basically put out everything. And we've been growing our email list on a weekly basis. We put out some link magnets. And so now we're actually launching Facebook ads that are basically capturing attention, capturing traffic into our funnel that then drives into automated email sequences that are teasing an upcoming product that we're launching, which is basically a masterclass around how to quit your job and go do freelance marketing full time.
That's sick. And, so before we go into the modern freelancer, you brought up a really, really good point, which is the supply-demand ratio between marketers versus the demand for marketers. What do you think has caused that to skew in that other direction of there being more marketers available than job openings? And then do you feel like the future of marketing is just going to get way too commoditized?
Yeah, so I'll answer in two parts. So it's definitely COVID that created a lot more marketers. So I think the music story I gave was a good example. We created from scratch digital marketers, a lot of them. So anyone who grew an agency during COVID had to find non-marketing people that wanted to learn and create those jobs, right? Digital marketing, e-commerce has just been growing. So now you've got a population of talent that's grown exponentially of marketers, and you've got you've got an industry, e-commerce, who's softened the last 18 months. So that's part one of the question. I think it's like the supply has grown in terms of training since 2020.
Before part two, so do you primarily focus on e-com? Is that what you're teaching people how to do? Is like how to run ads for e-com? And
that's part two.
Okay.
So part two is initially is e-commerce. I mean, that's my bread and butter. But the reality is e-commerce is pretty saturated. There's a lot of competition to get those deals. But you're looking at real estate, you're looking at lead generation, coaching businesses. These guys haven't gone near the level of sophistication in terms of advertising as e-commerce has. Because e-commerce, if your creative is not good, if your landing page doesn't have a CTA above the fold, if your copy doesn't touch into my emotions, you're not going to be profitable on that first order or on the LTV. You just need to be a weapon. Smart coaching businesses, you've got fat margins, right? So if you sell $1,000 program, you can spend up to $1,000 in customer acquisition costs and you'll still break even. E-commerce, you can't afford that. You have cost of goods sold, fulfillment, warehouse, shipping, all that stuff, right? So that's one of the things I've been preaching is, look, why don't you go work? Why don't you look for industries that are already profitable? Like the boring businesses, Cody Sanchez has kind of like canned that term a little bit. Like those are good examples. They're industries that are, they're all this time, they make money, they're profitable, and they are just lacking the digital marketing expertise that e-commerce has mastered. And so I've been pushing a lot of people, go work with lead gen companies. I do some fractional CMO from time to time, some consulting work, and I've been working with a lot of lead gen companies because they're telling me, look, we've got a profitable business. We haven't paid for leads. It's all been SEO and organic. We know our funnel. Our subscription is $150 a year. If you can spend $150 and below on your funnel, including your fee, we can scale to the moon. We can spend $1 million a month, right? But it all comes down to understanding your funnel. Do you know how much it costs you to acquire leads? What's the conversion rate from a lead to a trial, or a lead to a subscriber, or a lead to a community member, or a lead to a course, right? As long as you understand those numbers and you can figure out how to make those happen with Facebook ads, you can absolutely scale. So a lot of those businesses are very excited to find a freelancer who has got that skill set.
Yeah, and what would you say to the objection that sometimes lead gen based offers or lead gen based marketing systems aren't as scalable as e-com? So for example, if you have a profitable campaign that's bringing a really good ROAS, sometimes to go from 100K a month to 300K a month, and if you have enough margin, it's just really just upping ad spend, right? Depending on other factors like creative, but other models like lead gen, you can double ad spend, but then you get double the leads, which means you need double the salespeople.
Oh, I see. Well, I would argue it's a lot easier to scale actually, because e-commerce now you have to order more inventory. So inventory is always the headache. In January, you're basically planning for Black Friday of that same year, and you don't know if you're going to find an amazing funnel in August. And now you're like, well, I can't scale my ads. You wouldn't believe the amount of time that's happened to us. You discover a funnel in e-commerce closer to Black Friday, or your offer is amazing. You go from spending $10K a day to $200K a day, and then the client hits you up on Slack, hey, you have to turn off the ad spend. We ran out of inventory.
That's good and bad.
It's good. It's good problem to have for sure. So I don't think you'll have that problem nearly as much with coaching. Of course, you can hire more salespeople, and that's also a bit of a headache. But I think it's arguably easier to scale lead gen just because it's all digitalized. So worst case scenario, you can get people, you can nurture them a little bit longer. You can get them into an email sequence, sell them a smaller product, something that's automated, and then reach back out to them for the higher ticket. I think there's ways to do it.
Yeah, I think that CAC to LTV arbitrage is still there with Facebook ads for even maybe flipping digital products. So running cold traffic to a landing page that sells a low ticket offer, or running traffic to a landing page that sells a low ticket SaaS. Do you still believe that arbitrage buffer is still there?
Yeah, I would actually argue it's here bigger than ever, because the reality is Facebook ads have gone more expensive. So cost of acquisition, whether you do lead gen or e-commerce, has gone more expensive. And so as long as you understand your margin, that CAC to LTV ratio, I think you can feel comfortable using credit cards or outside capital. Companies like Brex have been blowing up because everybody's leveraging the CAC to LTV ratio, for better or worse. Supplement companies have always been that way. Even when they were profitable on the first order, they would scale their funnel as high as possible to that ceiling to break even on the first order, and then make money on the LTV, sometimes even lose money on the first order. So I think it's there. Another thing that people love is payment plans, or try before you buy.
Buy now, pay later.
Buy now, pay later. Huge, especially in your creative. A lot of people have that on the landing page. It's like buried under the call to action. Use that in your creative. People love it. Drive traffic to those landing pages. Add that into your welcome emails, whether you do e-commerce or coaching. It's huge in this economy because it's just weird right now.
Yeah, and it's funny too because I mean you mentioned that like info in a lot of ways can actually be a lot simpler to scale in terms of system wise. It's more like labor heavy, but but you have control over every factor. Like you can go hire a sales rep. You can even hop in and take sales calls yourself. Like you can't, like if let's say you're scaling quickly, like you can't manufacture more products yourself. You might have to find a new manufacturer, renegotiate rates with the new manufacturer, like
that's right.
Move your supplies over somewhere else. You could run out of inventory. Like it's also a raw materials business too. So yeah, that's a really interesting point too. And then you have like one little piece could like some trucks could break down, or there could be like a trucking strike in another country, and that's
your inventory is stuck on a boat. That's happened to us.
So about that, I heard Donald Trump just put tariffs on the United States. Well, how do you think that's going to affect e-com forward?
That's a good question. I think it'll impact prices more than anything. So already you're seeing brands raise prices, all over the scope, right? Not just e-commerce, but eggs and everything. People just have to raise prices. So I think it'll raise prices. it'll probably continue to creep your CACs up. So you'll have to be smarter on the LTV side. You'll have to make a better product that people come back and buy over and over again. Otherwise, you just won't be able to compete.
So do you think just raising prices itself is kind of like a Band-Aid solution temporarily, but it's going to force a lot of people to become more sophisticated marketers or salespeople in order to justify the increase of the price too?
Yeah, and when I say increase the price, like to the best of your ability, increase the value that comes along with it. So what's the perceived value of your product? If right now it costs $100 and you want to sell it for $125, what can you marginally improve about your product or your service that's going to allow your consumer to swallow the pill that it's now $125, right? Like if you're a coach, it could be an extra weekly call with your cohort. If you're an e-commerce brand, it could be throwing a hat. Like we've been doing this for one of my e-commerce brands, Buttercloth. We now throw a hat or a pair of boxers. It's a men's apparel shirt.
Yep.
We just throw a hat or a koozie or something that we know our audience values. That the perceived value is $50. And it's really costing us $1 or something, cost of goods sold landed, right? But that's what's allowed us to increase prices. Is we've increased the perceived value of the offer, the product, with something that really doesn't cost as much as what they perceive it is.
Sure.
Yeah, on pricing too. Nowadays, I mean, in the golden era, you're able to just run direct response to a landing page selling a white T-shirt, and then you get like a 10x ROAS. But
right,
gone are those days. You said you're a fractional CMO for that clothing company?
Yeah, Buttercloth was actually my first client at Mute6 in 2018. Really? And I love the team. These guys are amazing to work with. So I worked my ass off when they were my actual account. I was running the Facebook ads for a long time. So much that I ended up investing in the brand and I became a partner while at Mute6. And I still work with these guys to these days, more on an advisor perspective than an operator, because obviously I don't have the bandwidth. Yeah. But I basically help them manage the agencies, the service providers, I advise them on pricing strategy, and I help them with content. We make a lot of content.
Yeah, as CPMs are rising, as prices also rise, what are some things that brands, coaches, consultants can do to make the perceived value of their brand even bigger so they can justify charging higher prices? Because of course one thing is value, but it's also brand reputation, because you with a white T-shirt is just a white T-shirt, but if it has a Nike logo, it'll sell for.
Yeah. Well, like I said, for e-commerce, like throw extra products in there that are valuable, or help them from a digital standpoint, like guides on how to dress better. Just increase the value of your content. That's for e-commerce. But for coaches, like I said, how much does it cost you to do an extra call a week, right? Or create an SOP, a bank of SOPs for every part of your business that you help them manage, right? Just extra value that doesn't necessarily cost you 2 years of your time to build out, but will actually have a tangible impact. So ChatGPT prompts are a big one. Yeah, right now. I mean, they're kind of like commoditized, but damn, every time I see a good prompt bank for performance marketing, whether it's want to create an ad or take a long form podcast like this and then chop it into different bits and pieces, these are valuable. Like AI, it's just incredible what's happening with this.
Even creating an agent around that.
There's endless ways to provide more value. And I realized that because I'm down the rabbit hole with the modern freelancer. I have endless amount of ideas that can help freelance marketers quit their job and go full-time on freelancing. And I'm literally like struggling with my own bandwidth to build all of those out. So I've had to pick and choose what do I think is going to have the biggest impact for these guys right away. I run a survey in my newsletter. 90% of responses to the question, what do you struggle the most with, is finding clients. So basically 90% of the resources I've been building out for these guys is resources on how to find clients.
I see. Now, with the modern freelancer, you teach the one-to-one consulting model to get out of your 9-to-5 job, which is, go out there, get a client and service them. But what are some scalable and high leverage business models for modern day marketers to start pursuing? I know you on the side do UGC licensing, don't you?
Yeah. So the modern freelancer is interesting because it's designed to help out freelancers, right? It's really, at its core, it's designed to turn a digital marketer, a 9-to-5 who's overworked and underpaid at an agency, into a 6-figure freelance marketer who can enjoy life a little bit more, travel, not be stuck in an office. That's the ethos. That's what I'm really passionate about. That's what I've always been, from Betterly all the way to the modern freelancer. Now, for me as an entrepreneur, I like to understand opportunities and try and seize them if I can. For the modern freelancer, I see the way enterprise companies like QuickBooks and TripleWell and Motion market their stuff. It's all super outdated creative. So you're looking at the Facebook ad library. A lot of the creatives is 16:9. So site like landscape images that we used to run in 2010 on Facebook, right? These guys don't know how to advertise the same way e-commerce brands do. And so the modern freelancer is actually a media business. So the B2B version of the modern freelancer is actually allowing digital marketing advertisers like QuickBooks that are looking for freelancers to advertise via the modern freelancer. So instead of running the ad from their own page, their own handle on Instagram, they'll be able to run it from the modern freelancer or from my personal page, the French marketing guy. The creative will be built by us. It'll be direct response creative that's built very similar to all the elements you see in an e-commerce creative hook, so like story arc, social proof, authority, maybe a bit of urgency and call to action. The creatives will be built around that, and they'll draft to our website. So they'll basically, instead of, say you're QuickBooks, right? And you're looking for freelance marketers. That's one of your funnels. That's 30% of your monthly ad spend. You try and get freelance marketers to get QuickBooks Solopreneur. Well, instead of spending all 30% of your advertising via QuickBooks, you can use a small piece and whitelist through guys like us who basically review it from a third-party standpoint. So it'll take them to our website, an advertorial page that says, I tried QuickBooks Solopreneur and it saved my freelance marketing business $10,000 this year. It'll be a clickbaity type of headline that will describe everything about a QuickBooks Solopreneur from the lens of their ideal customer, a freelance marketer. It'll be filled with links that we can track everything. They can put their pixel on our website if they want to retarget that traffic. And then the goal is for me to basically show them that we're able to lower the cost per acquisition, their cost per lead by X amount, and then charge them a percentage of ad spend. So if we can beat their cost per acquisition by 30%, those brands have no problem paying us 10% of ad spend and then scaling those campaigns.
That makes a lot of sense. And it's still high leverage because you're scaling as the client scales too. So you don't need a ton of people.
Correct.
It's if you work with the right brands, you make a lot of money per client, and you make that creative once, and that creative's out there working for you.
That's right. And I've done a pilot, and we basically have mailbox money coming in every month since October from brands we've made content for. Seriously, just for fun at the beginning.
Are you able to share it to our audience?
Yeah.
Like, so Alex shared this at a coffee that we're having, and it's remarkable. And this is just like play money for you too.
Yeah.
You want to share some insight on the earning potential of just like UGC? Licensing?
Yeah. Well, I do it a lot personally for e-commerce brands. So I've got my own page that I can mention before, and obviously I know how to make good ads at this point because I've literally spent so much money on Facebook ads. So I'll just for some of the better clients that we work with that hire one of our freelancers to do Facebook ads, I have a good relationship with them. They always need more creative, and so I'll have them ship me product. I'll just make content around it and charge them 8% of ad spend. So I have brands literally spending 6 figures a month on my face talking about a product because I know how to make different hooks, and it's hilarious because all of my friends have seen it on Instagram. Like, are you an influencer now? And then you look at my profile, I've got 1,000 followers. Nobody knows me. I just know how to make really good hooks, really good content, and I also understand the media feedback from the media buyers. So he'll share with me the thumb stop rates for each of the hooks I make, and on the next iteration, I'll do something similar to what worked well.
So about that, what's the for that type of model? What's the frequency of creative testing? Are you sending ads once a week or when they should?
These guys, I made a bunch of ads in October, and they're still running. They have actually scaled them this year. I don't know how they scaled them all of a sudden, but I get the total ad spend every month, and it was like 120K in February. So that was a nice invoice for something I made. So something I made in October. So that's been great. So I think it just depends, right? So for the modern freelancer, because there's no minimum, I think we'll want to be careful with client expectations. As a matter of fact, we'll probably put in place a maximum because some clients will quickly realize, oh, I'm paying these guys that much money. I should be getting more creative. So I would advise to basically do a range or set a specific scope of work if you feel more comfortable that way. Let them know you'll be doing like 3 unique creatives a month with 2 hooks per creative, so 6 deliverables, and then you'll be doing a landing page every quarter or something. Just be really specific with it. But at the end of the day, it just matters, like, just do as many as it takes to make it work, right? Yeah. And if it doesn't work, get a new client, because that means their offer sucks.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess, because like there's obviously like the rev share style model, and then there's like the just retainer style model.
Yep.
And it's tough because like a big thing that we set very clear expectations, especially for our rev share only clients, that it's like we will do what's required and nothing else. Like, reason being, it's like, that means we need to make 100 creatives, we will. If we need to make 0 creatives, we will, because it's all about what's the actual performance, right? So like, we don't set it's like you're going to get 2 ad scripts a month or anything like that. We used to do that. Then we're like, they're entitled to a second ad script, and we had clients asking for them, and it's like, you don't need new ads right now. Right. That's not the constraint. Like, the constraint is somewhere over here. We should be spending our time on the media buying side then, rather than like getting you a new ad copy. So like, how do you? But then there's also like the, hey, if it's performing and you don't really need to touch anything, right? And like, you're, for 3 months straight, the creative's still working and it's still printing and it's super profitable. Like, I guess at what level, I guess the incentive for you is to create higher performing creatives, that way you can outperform them. And now you can get higher rev share, obviously, because if they're performing more, they spend more. So how do you kind of manage that balance with that offer? And how do you kind of set that expectation with your clients on rev share?
Yeah, that's definitely the incentive. As a matter of fact, I've been shooting more content recently for that brand who's been spending a lot of money on my ads, because I realized it's working, right? So if I feed them more high converting content, they'll spend twice as much. The difference for me is I'm busy running 2 businesses and consulting on the side. I got a lot going on. So what's it worth to me to spend time out of my day to make content personally, right? I think that's where you draw the line. So the real question is, how do you figure out that model without you being the bottleneck? And that's what I'm trying to figure out with the modern freelancer is, do I really want to be the face of all that content? I don't think I do. I think I'd rather work with someone that I know can speak on camera and share that good energy through the lens and give them a piece of that earning. So if the piece of content is making $5,000 a month in commission, I have no problem giving 20% away to the creator, because they'll be happy to take home $1,000 every month for something they've done 6 months ago.
There's also face fatigue too. So if you're like trying to promote 5 different brands, they're like, wait, who is this guy? Like,
right. You see that a lot in e-commerce. A guy we use for Buttercloth, this guy Scotty, he's like doing cuts, build, he's everywhere, and I see it in the comments. People are calling bullshit.
Yeah, they're like, there's no way. Like,
the nice try Diddy comments.
nice try, Super Diddy.
Yeah.
I get those a lot, actually.
Nice try.
Some guy called me because one of the brand I promote is a water bottle. I got called Water Diddy.
Water Diddy. Yeah, I saw somebody earlier, like what he was looking at an ad earlier, and it was like for some it was like Lion's Mane or something like that, and they're like, nice try, like Neuro Diddy or like, or something like that.
These are so. How do clients seriously ask me about this? So like, we think the targeting is wrong with our ads. Like, we're getting all these Diddy comments. I'm like, that's the funniest thing that's happened on the internet in a long time. Is all these people writing Diddy in the comments. It's hilarious, and it's great. Let me tell you, it's great for the engagement, because you're sending signals to Facebook that your ad is actually engaged. People love it, and you get a CPM premium. It decreases.
Yeah.
Have you, so we're talking a lot about white hat techniques. Have you ever like played around with any black hat, like Facebook ad techniques, like comment bots on your ads to reduce CPMs? Or
no? It's funny because I got asked that question a lot at Mute 6. People would come and say, all right, walk me through your like tech stack, and it's like, there's none. It's literally Google Docs, spreadsheet. So I've done things pretty manually. I would say, like, from a creative standpoint, I've done things that are, it's not black hat, but I've gone pretty aggressive with my hooks. During COVID, I actually got a cease and desist from the FDA for one of my clients because I made an ad around COVID. So COVID hit March 2020. I'm running the ads for a company called Beekeepers Naturals. Basically, since they came to me spending $1,000 a month on ads, and I scaled them, and now they're in every retailer in America. It's fucking amazing, great product. But I was always doing some schemy things to get my thumb stop rate higher, and so I bought a mask. I was at the Las Vegas airport. It's March 2020. I remember the
mask and you're at the airport.
I remember the chick telling me, "You're really buying a mask? These virus thing." This girl didn't believe COVID was going to be real. We didn't know it was coming up. I bought the mask. I'll show you the video afterwards, or you can insert it if we're watching. But basically, it's a one shot. Wearing this mask, and I rip it off and I say, who needs a mask when you have Beekeepers Naturals? And I show the propolis spray, which is good for your throat.
Oh god, yeah.
And I basically explained that like this is the miracle product. Forget about this virus thing. Remember, that's the virus just hit America. Like it's March 2020, and so I'm running this ad and it just picks up like crazy. It's still, I have a link, I'll share it with you. It's got like 10 million views. So that was a paid ads that blew up organically because we promoted it and people shared it. And the FDA saw it and they're like, hey
shit.
buddy,
Yeah,
you can't do
you
this
can't be
shit.
doing that.
It's like
there's-
so non-compliant.
Yeah, like there's things you can and can't say. You have to be careful in your advertising.
Yeah.
Because now you can get sued. I forget the name of the act, but basically like false advertising is a thing.
You know, you're a next level marketer when you're not getting like shut down by Facebook ad policy. You're getting shut down by government ad policy.
I have
Like-
gone on CBDCs from every shark on Shark Tank.
No way.
Let's go.
Because and from ABC too. So we're on Shark Tank 2018 for Buttercloth, and so I learned a lot of things about Shark Tank, including the fact that most of what you see on TV is not really what happens behind the scene.
Yep.
But that's the story for another day. The key is you're not supposed to use the ABC content. Actually, they will license the content to you for like 200 grand or something ridiculous. So obviously nobody does that, and so you basically have to, when you do like a UGC mashup or clip from Shark Tank, you basically have to like what is it like run it and then ask for forgiveness later or whatever.
Yeah.
So every shark has a legal team that hunts those creatives online and sends you cease and desist because you're basically using the likeness without paying them. So I've gone on cease and desist from all of them. Thankfully, I work with Robert Herjavec. He's our shark for Buttercloth, so he's cool with it. I shoot a lot of content with him and Jay Leno and all these guys. So these guys are cool, but Lori and all the others, Mark, they don't like when you use their face in their ads. So
Yeah.
I've gone on a good amount of those cease and desists, but never got
Does Robert not help you out with those? Say like, hey Mark, come on.
No, he doesn't. He's too busy. Although he just retired, so he's spending a lot more time helping us out, making content. So,
Yeah.
well, he actually introduced us to Jay Leno, the car collector in LA. He's got the biggest garage in the world.
Yeah.
And so every quarter I get to go to Jay Leno's garage and basically pick any car, write a script around it, and then just have him and Robert Herjavec interact. I wrote a script where Jay Leno broke down on the side of the road. Robert Herjavec pulls up. We shot that like a year ago. Robert pulls up and gives him a bunch of Buttercloth shirts. They drive off together in the sunset because they have that kind of like funny friendship.
Yeah.
So we've been doing some fun content around that.
So about that,
That's
like,
fun.
we all know creative is king, but what type of ads convert better? Is it the comedic ads? Is it the goofy ads? Or is it like direct response, straight, like direct to hook, direct to offer?
It depends on your brand. Why? Because it depends on your audience, right? So if your brand's like Buttercloth, we're targeting older males 45 to 50. So what's the audience for that brand? What are they going to resonate with, right? Humor. Jay Leno, Robert Herjavec, because they look like them. They're like middle-aged, like white guys with a little bit of money. So it just depends on what your brand's audience is. If you're a coach, I see static content work really well with big text on it. That's super interesting because static images with a lot of text on it used to be the enemy.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, Facebook used to penalize you. They had the rule of 20, if you remember. Basically, the Facebook AI would analyze your creative, and if you have more than 20% of the creative being text, you would get a penalty in your CPMs. Your CPMs would spike up. So we literally used to have to like lower the font size on the creative when we had text on it because it would just mess with performance. Nowadays, it's quite the opposite. I see ads that are almost like super straightforward. It's like Apple Notes or it's a mock-off.
That's a winning creative style, actually.
Winning creative.
Going to your Apple Notes, just direct to
Winner.
offer.
Big headline, usually a question, right? Tap right into their pain points. You struggling to get clients, and then it's a checklist. Post more content on LinkedIn, go to events, this and that.
The ads we're running right now for ET, are those static?
Those are static carousels.
Yeah, so we noticed that the static carousel ads too, because we've had a lot of video ads like that we've tested against, and one thing that I think you automatically assume is that the static ads is going to bring low quality of lead too, just because it's like, okay, you're not really qualifying, you're not connecting with them. We're getting cost per qualified lead, and cost per qualified lead is name, email, phone number, and then answering one qualifying question for like $5 on a 10K offer right now.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, and it's like literally it's a static carousel, and we have like a bank of like 50, I think 30
different creatives.
Wow.
Video creative
creatives.
variations. Yeah. And we just do like a static carousel up, and it's just like like smoking. And we still got those costs per lead. I think the lowest, those were like $7, but they're averaging around like what, 10, 15, 18?
Yeah.
And then like the static is like $5 cost per qualified lead.
Yeah. Statics are making a comeback for sure.
Yeah.
It's the whole pendulum concept. Couple years ago, people people hated webinars. Now the webinars are back. Same thing. Like statics were hated a couple years ago. Now they're on their comeback too.
It's interesting.
So
Old school marketing. All right, Alex just had a phenomenal bathroom break. I hope you wash your hands.
I did.
Okay, good. I was gonna fist bump you after. So fist bump was for washing your hands, by the way.
Great.
But diving right back into it here. We'll probably wrap up here in a few minutes. But curious. So you've spent over $100 million on ads. You have been a part of a 9-figure exit. Like you've been through this process before, like of like scaling up a business, and you went from, what was it, 20 to 500 employees in like a couple of years.
Correct.
So what would you say though? Like let's bring it all the way back now, because you've obviously worked with a bunch of new people and you teach a lot of people. Let's say an agency owner is doing anywhere from like 10, I guess anyone doing under 100K a month in their agency. What are the main things that those people need to focus on right now in order to start setting themselves up for long-term success, whether they just want to bring it to a couple 100K a month or $1 million a month or potentially even exit their agency? What should they be focused on right now?
Your service. Just make it top tier, top notch. Don't be afraid of lowering your margins just a little bit. As long as you just basically build world-class services. Because I see a lot of agency owners basically trying to build they think they have a sales problem. They don't have a sales problem, they have a service problem. We never really did much cold outreach with Mute6. It was always word of mouth, right? So from the time we got off, the first 10 clients are the hardest, right? Because you don't have case studies, or hopefully you do because you've been doing these for a while and you just built a new brand, a new agency. But it all comes down to your service. If your service is amazing and you get your clients results, they will come back to you. I have a fitness coach right now. He doesn't do ads. I got referred to him by a boy of mine who cut his body fat by like 10%. It's like, this guy's amazing. He's an entrepreneur. He works with entrepreneurs. Perfect. That's exactly what I'm looking for. So if I'm an e-commerce brand or coach or whoever, and I hear from a guy I can resonate with, another coach or another e-commerce brand owner, they're telling me about an agency or guy, it doesn't matter how you call it, a freelancer, an individual who's achieved the same kind of results I'm looking to achieve, I'm going to give them time of the day. Way more than somebody who emails me and A/B tested different lines of copy in their email. That's great. You should do cold emails. But like, don't spend 80% of your time doing sales. Spend 80% of your time creating a world-class service, charge a lot of money, hire the best people, and that's how you'll be able to scale.
Yeah, and I think that's so interesting because a lot of people, you're told at the beginning, sales is everything, and it is. You need to get your first few clients, and you need to be able to prove to them, though. So, like, what would you say, let's say, to even the people who are looking to start their own marketing agency, right? Like, they hear all these things about ads and how you can run your own marketing agency and how you can, like, set yourself up for long-term financial success, be your own business owner, get that lifestyle, like a big thing that you're doing with the through your new brand. So, what would you say to those people? Like, what should they, like, obviously it's to learn the skills, like, and start learning.
You have to get good. I have a huge disclaimer on my product page for the course I've built for my freelance marketers is read this first. If you're not good at what you do not buy this. Go take all these courses first. Get good at what you do. Get good at your craft. I know it sounds kind of like too straightforward, but the reality is you don't want to get started in this game if you're not good, because it's so competitive. Mm-hmm. You might sign a client, you might get good at sales, and then it'll churn after 3 months, because if you don't know what you're doing, you'll lose the client. So there's no point in doing this unless you're actually good at it, or at the very least unless you're training for it, taking classes. But like, the real way of getting good at this is to work under someone that's amazing. That's what I did at Mute6. Yeah. So we talked about entrepreneurship earlier. If you're younger and you've listened to Gary Vee brainwash you gotta go start your own business and eat noodle every day. That's BS. I hate that message. Instead, don't be afraid to be an entrepreneur. Go work at a small agency who knows what they're doing. They need hungry people like you. You'll learn more in 2 years than you learn in 10 years, right? That's number one. And if you've already done that, then focus on putting together a scope of work that's as standardized as possible. Try and niche into one type of vertical. So just do e-commerce really well or do lead gen really well. Try and niche down, because if you always have to figure out what the creative works for this industry and you pick different industries, every new client, you're going to spend you're going to waste a lot of time trying to figure out. So get good at what you do. systemize as much as you can, so you have like an SOP for about everything, right? And then once you start making enough money that you can hire people, aka don't hire until you're fully maxed out in bandwidth. I've made that mistake. Hiring too early is not good. Once you have enough money, don't be cheap. Don't tell me about your margins. I don't care about your margins. You'll make money if you're good at what you do. Don't be afraid to hire top tier talent. They will help you scale. They will help you retain clients. It's a lot more expensive to onboard and offboard clients than it is to retain them. Your margins, if you're focused on your margins and you cheapen out on hiring cheap talent, junior talent, your margins will be worse because you'll spend all your time onboarding and offboarding. Instead, don't be afraid of breaking even on month one because you have a lot of external talent to pay for or resources, and then keep your client for anything that's past like 6 months in LTV. It's usually all gravy. It's all profits because you get to a point where things are more automated and you got a good rhythm and you get your monthly, weekly call with your client. So yeah, just get really good at what you do. You'll get a lot of referrals. You'll get really good partnership. Partnership is not a big one. So scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. I talked about that, right? Half of my business with Betterly is not matching freelancers, is actually passing clients to a service provider. Because a lot of the time clients will come to me and say, hey, I need a new media buyer for Facebook. My guys suck. Okay, let me see the ad account. Well, you don't have a media buying problem. You have a creative issue. So there's no point in me introducing you to a freelancer. Instead, you should meet this guy who owns a creative agency. He'll make you badass content. And then they call me later, 3 months later. Oh, you were right. Like my media buyer was fine. But the 3 months they worked with the creative agency, they pay me 10% a month referral fee, right? So and vice versa, they send me business. So partnership is huge. I think I'll leave you that one. Partnership is also a huge way of getting business.
Yeah, and I like that too because I think a lot of people are really scared, especially like the young, ambitious entrepreneurs, to be an entrepreneur, right? And they're like, no, because I remember even before I graduated. So funny enough, me and my fiance back in college is when we met, and we were in a marketing class, and we went around the room saying what company we wanted to work for. I was the only person who was like, I don't want to work for a company. I want to run my own business. Nice. And like everyone was like, whoa, that's a crazy concept. I'm like, I know, right? But then funny enough, I graduated and I ended up becoming an entrepreneur in another company, right? Because I realized I was trying to start my own thing. I was trying to run my own agency. I literally locked myself in my basement for like 3 straight months and just literally watched like YouTube ad tutorials. Like who's the one guy who I used to watch all the time? I'm going to shout him out on another podcast, but he was great, free, awesome content. So I remember I went through and like locked myself in, learned all these skills. And then what I realized was like, until I actually had case studies, a lot of people just aren't going to pay you, or you have to do it for free, or you have to do it on a rev share or something to get started. And then by that point, I just realized, like, okay, well, like, what's the easiest way to learn and also get paid while I'm learning? It's literally just go work for a company that's going to pay you to learn the skill.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I always say I would have paid all the money in the world to work at Mute 6 because of everything I've learned. It's literally like quantifiable millions of dollars.
Yeah. And you feel really, really stupid about a month into working at these companies. You're like, I thought I knew everything. And then you're like,
you get the realization, like, I know nothing about this.
Big time.
Yeah.
Always be a student for sure.
And you're like, what's SOP mean? And they're like, you don't know, like, what? And they're like, it's just like, or, you know, you just look at an ad account and you're like, yeah, like, I remember I was writing scripts and they're like, I mean, like, yeah, you got a good creative side to you, but like, that's literally just not going to convert. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I'm really good at writing. And then, like, you just have to, I think the biggest thing too is just like being super humble and being an entrepreneur and just being a student and like wanting to learn and just like replicating everything you see.
Yeah. And when I tell you be really good at what you do, like, I preach what I say. I literally just finished a 5-week creative performance bootcamp. It was $5,000. I'm not even running ads as much as I used to, but I still take media buying courses, the relevant ones at least. I still take creative performance boot camps. I still go to paid events because if you're good at what you do and you stay on top of the landscape, that's how people can trust you. Yeah. Shit moves too quickly. What worked yesterday doesn't work today. You just have to always be on top of it.
Yeah, it's not being good at what you do, it's staying good at what you do.
Staying good at what you do. Because you hear guys are like, oh, have you tried running this? I'm like, this shit doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
Like that place.
Buddy, that worked last week. This is a new week.
Yeah, right? So just newsletters obviously are a really good way of staying on top of everything. Twitter, DDC Twitter is really good. The usual, I'm like
Money
Twitter.
Yeah.
You guys just share bomb because it's the norm now. Yeah. Actually, it's like to build a personal brand, you have to share all the crazy good nuggets. So there's never been more information out there than there is today. So there's no excuse not to be good at it. I mean, if you suck and you tell me I don't have time to learn, like audit, how long you spend like on Netflix and Instagram, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like just learn how to get good at what you do, to go execute. That's how you get the case studies. You're not gonna get case studies if you suck at what you do anyway.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to get really good.
Yeah, and I think a big part of that too is, like you just mentioned, is focus. Like focus is the best way. And Bhargav, you talk about this all the time, is singularity of focus. And it's like, I mean, for example, like, I mean, I'm a big gamer, even to this day. I love video games. But I actually just deleted all the games off my computer about 2 months ago because I'm like, we're going into like a scaling mode. And I'm like, even though like it was after work and I would be on for maybe like, you know, a couple hours at the end of my work day, after getting my work done, it was just like the focus shift of having to go into that. And I remember a long time ago, I asked somebody very close to me, they're like, yeah, I'm not developing my skills. I want to get better, but I'm not landing these jobs. I'm like, then lock your PS4 in your closet for a month and just like do it. And they're like, no, I can't do that. And then they didn't. Like, I have way more time than I even thought. I'm actually more social too. I'm going out more. Like, I am meeting awesome people. I developed way more skills. Like, I think it's just the big thing is, like you mentioned, just that focus.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, that said, is there anything that you want to shamelessly plug, you know, for anybody watching?
Yeah, I mean, if you're a digital marketer and you want to go full-time freelance, or actually even if you're a small agency owner, themodernfreelancer.com. I basically put out everything for free, tons of blog articles. I write them myself. There's no AI here. Everything's super actionable. It'll really like teach you a lot of things about building a successful freelance marketing business or small agency. I think they're basically the same thing. If you're an agency of one, you're a freelance marketer. Sorry. I write a newsletter every Friday. Same deal. I started to put out a bunch of SOPs. I have an amazing proposal template. On my blog, you can download for free. It's literally a simple proposal with all the legal verbiage, but also all the scope of work. It's detailed. I promise you, it'll help you close more deals when you're on the 10-yard line. If you send out a shitty Google Doc that's vague, you're not going to close the deal. So go download my free proposal. And I got a few other things that I'm putting out for free. So
check them out.
If you need good resources from a guy who's done it, that's a good place to go.
And he's French, which is kind of cool too. So.
Yeah,
and I'm French.
They're French verified.
And if you download it today, you'll get a white flag in the mail, courtesy of the French.
You really were educated in America, weren't you?
I am.
Oh, yeah, man. Dude, thank you for being on. Appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me, boys.
Yeah, of course.
Appreciate it.
Alrighty. We'll see you guys in the next episode.
See ya.